Oh, yeah, I'll follow up on that and find out. We knew nothing about it.
All right, the hour being 6 PM on
Yeah.
Monday, the 2nd of June, 2025. I'd like to call to order the city council meeting discussing the city budget. Before we go any further, though, I'd ask you all to rise and join Councilor Haynes in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilor Haynes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Joined this evening by Katie Gargano, our city clerk. I'll ask her to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Here?
Counselor Susie?
Here.
Counselor Hoffman?
Here.
Counselor Haynes?
Here.
Counselor Bogart?
Here.
Counselor Couch?
Here.
Mayor Hosmer?
Present. We're also joined this evening by Kirk Biotti, our city manager, Glenn Smith, our finance director. Which one is first on the agenda? Is it the library?
Yeah.
So we'd ask for the budget presentation from the library. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. Not that you have to have one, but you don't, do you have a handout for us or anything?
I do not. have a
Okay,
handout.
that's okay.
We thought we would start this evening by highlighting some of our accomplishments for the current fiscal year, and we thought it would be best to start with the library bond project. Deanne Hunter, library director. Thank you.
For the record, John Moriarty, library trustee.
So currently, we have completed a little over $115,000 as part of the bond project. The work that has been done to date consists of roofing and exterior masonry. We also have work in progress. That work totals a little over $101,000. That is for additional roofing work and plaster as well. Remaining funds will certainly be expended before the end of the project is complete. The funds will be used for additional masonry repairs. However, these repairs will be focused on the interior of the tower, which is in need of some work, as well as exterior window trim repair and painting, and resealing of the building apron.
Deanne, if I could have you pause right there, can you tell
Sure.
us the total amount of the bond that you taken out? Maybe take us back to square one and build upon that as to where you're
Yes.
at and where you're going to conclude with the bond and the project.
So the entirety of the project, the bond, is $360,000. And the vast majority of the funds will be used primarily on the building envelope to really roof masonry, making sure that everything is in tip-top shape. So the project is moving along. We haven't really run into any surprises, and we hope to continue along and get through our list of projects.
And so these are true capital improvements, or is this the result of any deferred maintenance?
Well,
Capital in the sense that it's reinvesting in the asset.
Sure.
I would not classify this as deferred maintenance. We've been dealing with the issues as they come up. Of course, 20 years ago, it's hard to believe, 2005, we completed the renovation of the building, the addition and renovation, and that bond retired this year, coincidentally. So this is sort of the carry-on of the next 2 decades, and so what we're trying to anticipate is where we'll stand in the next 2 decades. So we're trying to be as proactive and not reactive as possible with this particular treasure.
Sure, and I'm not trying to, I hope you appreciate it, I'm not trying to stump you here or throw a curveball. I'm just, need to have my recollection refreshed every
Sure,
every
happy
year
to
you
help.
come before us and figure out where we're at, that's all. Thank you for your patience. Go ahead.
were there any other questions about the bond project before we move ahead?
Counselor Susie.
One other question. I know you said, John, you just reminded me of it. We retired one, right? Okay? And that's the only one that was outstanding. Well, this one here is outstanding for the library. Do you foresee some of the requirements in the next, let's say, 5 years?
Well, through the capital process, one of the things that we're poignantly aware of is that our slate roof is 122 years old, and we've actually spent to date, I think, somewhere around $200,000 just doing small repairs on that slate roof. At some point in time, that's going to be an issue. Not in the next 5 years, we don't predict. However, this is shows you the value of the slate roof, and that the The addition that we did in 2005 is nearing the end of its 25-year life expectancy, and so we're likely looking at a new roof on that aspect of the building, probably out about 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to start with a few quick statistics. We have served approximately 109,000 people that have visited the library in the past 11 months. Circulation totals 93,551 to date. Laconia teens read over 1,200 hours during the Teen Summer Reading Program at the beginning of the fiscal year. I always like to highlight this because, believe it or not, teens still read books. We've made approximately 200 outreach deliveries to homebound patrons so far this year, and that is definitely up from last year. The library hosted 4 exhibits, including artwork by Laconia middle and high school students. That exhibit actually just ended at the in May, and we now have the artwork of a local resident on display that was installed earlier today. You should stop in and check it out. It's a lovely exhibit. And over 6,200 people have attended library programs so far this year. And I really wanted to end some of the highlights with sharing a quote from one of our second graders that visited a month ago. She shared this with the children's librarian. "Thank you for making programs free because my family is having a hard time making money work out." So I thought that was good, positive feedback for everyone to hear. And some of the accounts that we would like to highlight for FY26 budget requests. Really, there are 4. And really what I looked at was accounts that are over $5,000 with a percent change of more than 10%. And we're looking at 4 lines. That would be the light power line. That budget request has increased 11.4%, and that is just simply due to the increased cost of electricity.
Can you call off the line numbers, please?
Oh, yes. That would be 202-0000.
Got it? So those are your utility costs.
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
The next line would be our library supply budget, which is 214-0001. That is an increase simply in the cost of the materials, as well as it will be a year that we have to order library cards. And we simply have to order a very large quantity, and generally they last us for at least 2 fiscal years. So we are up for a new batch of library cards. The next line I'd like to point out is our maintenance equipment line, which is 233-0000. This budget line budget request has decreased 20%, and really it simply boils down to the upcoming inspection schedule for the next fiscal year, which the fire system and the sprinkler system tend to be the 2 bigger inspections. And we know once we've taken care of our 20-year inspection, sprinkler inspection, the following year will be much more cost-effective. The maintenance software line, 235-0002. We're asking for a 14.3% increase in this line. There are a lot of expenses in this line, including Phoronix, which is a software that keeps our public internet computers secure, protects them from any cybersecurity threats. We also have a Meraki fee, which is for our firewall license renewal, which is a fairly substantial cost as well. And then we have a few smaller costs in this line as well. Constant Contact, which is our electronic newsletter. It's one of the primary ways we communicate with our patron base. Envisionware, which is the software that runs the public printing. PassPerfect, which is the software program that we share with the Historical Society, where we have images and artifacts and all things stored in this database. And the last significant cost in this line would be Microsoft licensing. Though our book budget does not fall into the category of certainly over $5,000, but it does not have a significant percent change. You'll notice that, or the book in line is really an increase of 1.5%. So we are trying to make our budget go as far as possible, and we are aware that everything seems to be going up across the board, so. Any questions about any of the accounts?
Sure. So I'll go back to page 47 in the activities. And though, when I look at all those numbers, total items circulated, visits to library, visits to children's room, program attendance, the numbers in a vacuum are impressive and clearly reflect a lot of work on yours and your staff's part. But it's difficult to determine how those numbers are in historical sense without seeing past years. Are we trending higher? Are we flatlining? Are we going lower? So, again, as a standalone, impressive numbers, but where do they, and can you provide something from last year or 2 years ago to allow us to compare these data points you've provided?
Sure. So to date, we have had this current fiscal year, as far as library visits, we have had 108,899 visits. So that is a 6.4% decrease with 1 month remaining. So my guess is we'll probably be right on par with last fiscal year. Circulation to date, we've circulated 93,551 items, and we have a month remaining. We may be right around the same at the end of this fiscal year, would be my guess. Outreach numbers. Outreach continues to climb. We did have 175, I believe was the number from last year. And we have 198 so far this year, homebound deliveries.
So my request for you is to provide your historical data
Sure.
over the past few years so we can gain a better appreciation of where the trends are leading.
Sure.
So, and it's, I appreciate you having the numbers right at your fingertips, but I think it's really challenging to take those numbers in, hear them, and then still try to draw an inference from the 2024 numbers. So if you could provide those in the next week or so, just so we can add it to this, that would be
Sure.
really helpful, and provide a guide. If you can go back a couple of years, that would be bonus, okay?
Will do.
Thank you. So I appreciate then you're going back to page 46 on the, on our budget, which is your operations. And your operating expenses and the items that you identified, 4 of them, it looks to me, one's gone down, 3 have gone up. Small amounts, dollar-wise, 5,000, 1,200, 1,000. I don't know if there's another one in there that's gone up. But then I go down to outside contracts, and I'm not sure if you touched on that, but we see a department request of, last year it was 0, it seems to me, and now we're up to $33,000 was your request. The manager approved $33,000. So can you talk about that line item and let us know why we went from 0 to 33,000, or maybe you're reclassifying some expenses that
Yes,
shed some light on it?
We were, the finance director had suggested that so that the library was in keeping with other departments, the janitorial fee would be moved to contracts instead of where it was previously, which was under the maintenance.
Okay.
So it really isn't a new expense, it's just a,
You see that on line 235.
I'm sorry. Okay, so the line I was touching on is 48,304,000 outside contracts, and that's in contrast to what line? That we must have a line that has gone down.
235,000. See, building janitorial.
Going across, but that we still have a gap year there. That's
Right,
22 and
yeah.
23.
304,000.
Mr. Mayor,
The other one you
Yes.
see here is 235 XXXX.
Right, that's the,
Mr. Mayor.
There's the gap.
About halfway down
Got it.
the
Okay.
operating, you'll
See
see the
that?
number that
All right,
corresponds.
that's great, that's great, that's really helpful, thank you. I would go back to that, it seems like the largest increase is in 481-101-00000 salaries, where it looks to me to be over a 10% increase in salaries. Is that correct? Is my rough percentage right, Mr. Smith?
That is correct.
Okay, have we added more people? Have we had to increase wages, compensation plans by about 10%? What adds to that?
We haven't. I think part of it, and maybe Glenn can speak better, is that the 5% wage adjustment, the market adjustment from last fiscal year, was not reflected in last year's salary line. It was my understanding that all of the
That's correct.
employees were in a different pot of money.
We had it in contingency, just in case it didn't get approved. Once it got approved during the year, we knew we'd filter it into it, plus this year's adjustments.
That's very helpful as well. Thank you very much. Those were my questions. Does anyone else have questions? Counselor Susie?
I want to bring up something that I brought up last year that's close to me because I took advantage of it very much as a kid, okay? And I don't know how we do it. All I want to do is keep planting the seed in your mind, okay? And somehow I like to see us go to a bookmobile. I really would, because I know kids love to go to the library, but not all kids get a chance to go. And reading to me is the number one thing the kids should have. So if we could find even, I don't know, somehow through surplus or somewhere in the state surplus properties, a van that we could work on and have somebody help us with, and send vans around to the parks where the kids hang out, okay? And do like a bookmobile or to the schools in the summer times or whatever it is, and bring the books to them. I mean, that's something I think is just golden, okay? And I want to keep planting that seed. And if there's a way that ever comes up, John, and stuff, and there's a benefactor out there, or you see a means to do it, I'm all in, okay?
It's an exciting idea. We'll keep our nose to the grindstone on that. Thank you.
Anyone else have questions? Counselor?
Looking at your fuel costs, is that building oil or natural gas?
It is natural gas.
I'm assuming that the HVAC system's like 20 years old
It
in that
is.
building. Have you looked into maybe something newer that would be more energy efficient that might actually pay back
Can I
over
just
a
can I
20
just
year?
say it's really fun when you tell a reference librarian to look into SEER numbers? We were just talking about it 2 weeks ago. We're open to input and suggestions, by the way.
It'd be a great building for geothermal. Maybe there's some grant money for that.
Interesting.
Just
idea.
wondering if there's been any thought given to maybe making the building more efficient.
Solar panels on top of that slate roof.
Oh, yeah. Just drill right into those,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that'll work great.
Thank you.
Let me just say, I think we're so fortunate in this city to have the library that we have. Not only the project, the capital project of 20 years ago, which was remarkable to think about, and it's hard to believe 20 years has gone by, but the quality of the library, the quality of the staff, the quality of the circulation, the quality of the children's programming downstairs, where my kids spent an awful lot of time as youngsters. And I know there are an awful lot of challenges at the library at times that are particularly unfortunate that you've had to deal with, and that's really takes you away from your core mission here of running a first-class municipal library. And I know that's challenging, so I just want to say how fortunate we are for the work that you do, and please convey that with your staff. Mr. Moriarty, convey it to everyone on the board and the trustees. You are tremendous partners in the city, not just at that library, but certainly at the work that's gone on and the contributions that have gone on in regards to the Colonial Theater as well. And I know I speak for all of us sitting up here. Thank you. You make this community better because of the work that you do. Really appreciate you.
No, it's a pleasure to do it.
One other question, Mr.
Thank you
Mayor.
for being a partner in that. I know you're quick on time, short on time. If I could tag on one little detail at the end. You brought up, I think two of you brought up public monies, and we are thrilled that, I will say this later, but there are three things that I really wanted to do as a library trustee. And I worked really hard on one of those for 15 years. And just like that, the sky opened up and one of them fell literally in our lap. And we'll be making a public announcement, but I wanted to share this with you quietly in advance. But we will soon be offering, well, we actually are right now, offering Westlaw services to all of our patrons. So if you're a small law firm in the city or an individual who is trying to represent themselves or understands the way things work, that system is now available. It's roughly a $20,000 a year subscription that the New Hampshire Law Library is providing for us. So that's a county-wide resource. We're the only library in the county that will have access to that. And I am just tickled pink that that's here at Laconia Library. So thank you to the New Hampshire Library, and mum's the word until Mr. Gabriel publishes it.
You'll have law firms setting up in the basement, right? They don't need an office. Go ahead.
Charge them by the hour.
Good, big country.
I have one other question. This morning when my granddaughter told me, reminded me to ask you, what happened to the magic show? She went last year and she was looking forward to doing it this year, I believe, and she said something to me, Pepe, can you find out what happened to the magic show they had last year or something like that?
I believe we had the magic show last year, but
She
I'll
hit me
have to
with-
double check.
She hit me with that. She's a third grader, so for some reason I got to her head and, okay.
I will get back
Thank
to you
you.
with that.
That's great.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody need a break before we go into DPW? We're ready to keep rolling along.
Or this one we're going to be. Did you get my text, Katie? I thought it was funny. I had a meeting downtown.
Yeah,
I
on
did,
screens yet?
so-
It is there, but I don't think we can do it, the introduction and then I'll move.
Okay,
But it is there.
all right. I'm Wes Anderson, Director of Public Works for City of Laconia. Nate Gurett will be answering some of the questions, but also be talking about the sanitary sewer. So you'll have a twofer with us tonight. I'm ready anytime you are. Okay, so again, we're Public Works. And there we go, there's the piece. Okay, so that's the agenda for tonight. So basically, you gotta remember, we have lots of accounts and a lot of functions, so we're gonna go over each one through the process. And, let's see, here we go. Okay, so planning guides was 2.5% increase over last year. We met that objective. If you've been following everything that's going on, the construction costs are exceeding consumer price index, both materials and salaries. Part of that is we still have over $500 billion in that infrastructure investment fund over 10 years, so that's keeping the cost up. We don't know what's going to happen with tariff impacts, price of steel and everything else that's going on, and we also have to worry about electricity and repair parts costs. Okay, personnel standpoint, when I went into the winter, just before this started, I was short 5 people. I was able to get 2 Forest Service seasonal employees working for me over the winter, so I was actually 3 short. They left in the springtime. I was able to hire 2, so I was sitting at 13 until the most recent job fair at Laconia High School. And we were lucky. One of the graduating high school students just accepted a job offer with us, and we'll be starting on June 16th. So that means I'm still looking for 2 people. The other shortage I have is in the engineering, the city project inspector. We have advertisements out. We haven't had much interest yet. So as it sits right now, as of June 16th, I'll be at 27 people, short 3. Salaries, as you can see here, from right now, we're offering, or will be on the 1st of July, $21 an hour for labor. Most of the people that we hire right now don't have a commercial driver's license, so they're starting off as a laborer. Then, for any who do have it, we'll be offering just over $22.68. From a price standpoint, for what I've been tracking on Indeed and other sources, our high end, which is about, I want to say around $24, $26 an hour, is pretty much the starting salary for competitors. Of course, you can't really compare what their benefits are versus our benefits because they don't advertise it. Yes?
That's what I was gonna ask you. When you look yourself towards the private companies, like you have listed
Right.
here between, what's the comparison from benefit to benefit?
That's the piece. You don't really see the benefits that they're putting. They just say they have 401K and they have health insurance, but they don't go into detail on it.
People that have worked there, have they given you that information somehow, or have you been able
No.
to gather that? No.
I just know that, I'll give you an example, because he works for us all the time. Paul Busby, for his permanent employees, offers health insurance.
Offers what?
His permanent employees, the ones that aren't seasonal, his superintendent's high ranking, they have it, and the others will get it after they work so many years with them.
We get it, but is there a shared cost, or like, we have a
Yeah,
plan
that's-
that's pretty good, I think.
When you ask that question for the private side, that's negotiations at that level. You don't get that information.
Because I think we have a pretty good benefit.
We do, but the issue comes in if you're a 26-year-old or under,
Yeah, they don't care
they're on
about
their
that.
parents' insurance,
They wanna buy
and
this.
they're looking at money.
Yep.
In this particular case, the student that we just hired mostly came to us because he wanted us to pay for his commercial driver's license, and you'll see that later.
Once you do that, do you hang on, is there a clawback period if they were to leave you a day after they get their CDLs?
Not really for new employees. There is for ones who've been with us and going from a CDLB to a CDLA. I don't think you put it in the
I think
contract.
we put it in the contract
You
this
did?
year.
That's-
Yeah.
I don't remember
Yeah.
seeing it, but
We have it in the contract, yeah.
Yeah, there was something on that. Wes,
yes.
Reader's Digest version, could you explain the commercial license?
Okay, for,
It used to be, you had the book, you studied it, you took a test, you went for a driver's,
not anymore. Federal rules state, basically, you have to go through a certified driver training school. There's a 40-hour classroom instruction, and then there's one after that's all based off of how long it takes you meet certain standards of driving that's determined by the federal government and the person who's training you. They have to meet those federal standards.
My
Thank
son-
you.
My son went.
Go ahead, Wes.
Okay, so the other piece that we've come closer to is maintaining and attracting people is the winter stipend. As of this year coming up, from November 1st to March 31st, $100 a week stipend. Just to give you an idea, NHDOT was advertising all this past winter for not $5,000 bonus for plowing for the whole winter. Concord, because their main shed is in Concord, was offering $300 a week, and Ashland's $200. So we're in there, we're starting to offer it, and the guys who work for us right now are appreciative of that, because they're basically on call all winter. But it hasn't been that major an attraction for a person coming to us.
Yeah.
Okay, recruiting and retention, salary again, vacation, although to a degree that's being corrected with the changes in the contract. Some of the senior people, I'll call it 40 age, that timeframe, who want to come work for us, they, for the most part, have high vacation time and they have high salaries. And when they look at our salaries, although we have vacation and benefits, because they're earning so much of that right now, they're not willing to take a lesser price. And then you see, it was previously cost of obtaining the CDL license. We now fund it for a CDLB, which is our level. It's $5,500. Yes.
Where at in the budget, I'm looking on page 58, would that be reflected in the
The
number?
CDL,
Yes,
all you'll see is training line, that's it.
training line?
Yep, and it's buried because I have sub-accounts underneath my major accounts, and you won't see that anyplace unless you go into the sub-account line. So if you're looking at this budget piece, when you get to, when you see, let me see, highway maintenance, there's a training line in that. City engineering has a training line. Solid waste has a training line. So you're, when you're looking at your budget, you're looking at my high-end accounts, not all my sub-accounts.
The high end, excuse me, the high end account is the subsets are accrued up to the high end account number.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And it depends upon what position they're in, where the account comes from.
I understand.
If I may?
Sure.
So on that line for the training, do you use your past historical turnover rate to figure out what to budget for as the future, or?
Well, for the most part,
Is
the
it-
only turnovers I really have are really retirements. So it's really based more on what I think I'm gonna have to hire versus what I'm hiring.
Okay.
And for the most part, if I'm short in that funding, it's coming out of another line in that account. Okay, so as it sits right now, again, big picture wise, and I'm talking every individual line at the account level, but the major ones, you can see what we have. So salaries have gone up because of the contract negotiations by 197,000 and change for the general fund account. Really no change in winter maintenance or highway maintenance. Streetlights, we went up 5,000. One, because we're seeing more costs as associated with delivery charges. And then ISF, repair and replacement, went down. Okay, big issue always with us is what's the projection for wintertime? We just came out of a La Nina year, which basically means we're a little bit cooler than normal, but it causes stormier conditions. Right now, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is predicting we're going to be in a neutral pattern through the summer, and it looks like we'll be in a neutral pattern through the winter, although another La Nina is not far behind percentage-wise. So when it's neutral, they just don't know what's going to happen. It's more unpredictable. This is how we're sitting, because salt is my major expenditure for wintertime. So this past year it was $78.15 a ton. We just opened up the bids. We're part of a Concord co-op for buying salt. The low bidder was $80 a ton. High bidder was $160 a ton.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
On the price per ton, you said you're part of the Concord Co-op.
Right.
Is that part of the state?
No, it's not part of the state buying group. There's about 15 communities that all got together, and we go out as a co-op, or mass central
The
bid
state
for
has a lower cost bid?
it. They don't necessarily. Sometimes ours is because the state has delivery sites all over the state, whereas ours tend to be central into the central part of the state.
So is this delivered?
Yes.
So is it delivered to here, or is it delivered to some central site?
No, it's delivered to each one of the member communities. So each member community has a different price.
Where's this all
Thank you.
come from?
Yep. Then the other piece, of course, is overtime.
Oh, I see.
It's got nothing to do with that.
Okay, so other things we're trying to maintain the level is signs and pavement markings. The big one on that is the retroreflectivity requirements that we have to meet at the federal level. Parking and traffic control is basically both the traffic signals that we have out there and any of the flashing beacons. That sort of piece falls into that piece. Tree removal is always slow. Typically, we ask for $6,000 a year. That gets us about 4 trees that we have to remove. In-house stormwater drainage and sewer system repairs, yes.
Just wondering about the pavement markings. What is the regulatory requirement on that? And like, when do we have to comply? And
Oh, we've passed that date.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
So basically, as we change out signs, we're making sure it meets it. And as we go on a schedule for our critical signs, which are yield and stop, we're doing it versus buying the retroflectivity meter and having to check each and every one.
Does that also include like painting the roads, the road
Painting
lines?
roads have to have actually now, all the road paint, not just the long lines, have to have retroflectivity.
Do we have it takes different equipment to do that, right? Do
We
have that?
contract it out.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're gonna have to buy one for the crosswalks, to be able to get that, and that's part of what our plan is for the upcoming budget year. But for the most part, the long lines are all contracted.
Gotcha.
That's to the state, correct?
Pardon?
Does the state do that, the long lines?
No, not for municipalities. Basically, municipalities go out for bid. And right now, ours is K5 out of Massachusetts. Let's see, and then landfill and groundwater monitoring. Realistically, I'll say the operational account pays for the disposal gardens, because that's the capped one. We have to test twice a year and do all the annual reports to Department of Environmental Services. Frank Bean Road is capped, and is getting through the process to be into the repetitive process now. And Old Moore landfill is the one we're going through the process to meet department standards of how they want it capped. And then that'll come on the process.
So is that whole field up on the top, at the end of the road, does that whole field have to be capped?
If you're going up Old Moore Road,
Yeah,
the one on the left,
Yeah.
we go partially into Guilford, because we
Yeah.
actually own 47 acres into Guilford.
right.
So it's the whole field plus where we've removed some of the trees.
That's a pretty good chunk of land to
It
cap.
is.
Is,
Okay.
when that's capped, is it like you can't do anything to it, or can you build on it? Can you do anything?
You can, but the preference is always ball fields. You're not putting someone into an office building that's on top of a capped landfill.
We let the kids play in the landfill?
Can't play in the landfill, but they can play sports on top of it.
Obviously, we've got the other one in Ward 6 that we've talked about putting the solar array on.
Yes, and that's up and running.
It's up and running.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like that might be another opportunity for a solar array if there's an interested
Correct.
party.
Yep.
So I would encourage the city to take a close look at that as part of their,
Yep.
medium-range planning to do something there. It's a nice field. and-
Yep.
Especially we got 50 acres, I mean.
Okay, from the private road status, except as is more than 21, but that's the ones we've had meetings with. And so we've gone through the process, which is part of our learning curve for it. And we've got Hillcrest and Janes that you did the layout and return for. I have gotten both key things document-wise to meet IRS requirements for Hillcrest, the W-9s. Checks going in the mail today to Mr. Brialt, and Mr. Spencer gave it to us, so if I get the check Friday, we'll mail it next week. I have not heard any sign of the W-9 from the Mayhew family on James Avenue yet, although he has talked to,
I've talked to him, but
Right.
don't know where it stands yet.
Yep.
He did call.
so we're getting ready to go and do the next set. We've got a couple that have met the majority piece, and we'll start working on them.
Thank you.
That's Ward 1, correct?
Let's see, no, Ward 6 is where most of
6
them
and
are
1,
right
yeah.
now,
Hillcrest is
and Ward
6.
1.
I thought you were talking about the campground.
No, it's, one of the ones is in the campground, one of the ones is Lucerne, which is in Ward 6, I believe.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, transitioning from that, we're going into the solid waste piece. Again, we have existing contracts with Casella multi-year and with Waste Management. And in there is the fixed prices for it. So Casella's is a 5% annual increase, minimum. Otherwise, if it goes over that, it's the CPI. Basically, it's a little bit more complicated with Waste Management because they also got a fuel adjustment in there twice a year. But the benefit of Waste Management is that the price goes down,
They go down.
we go down.
Yep.
Let's see, and probably the key thing, at least is always fixed, is we know what our prices are gonna be for solid waste disposal at the Rochester landfill for 4 more years. Okay. So we're going to $95.51 a ton on the 1st of January.
Just curious, some months ago, we passed the ability for people to buy extra trash containers.
I think we're at 3 now.
Okay, I just wanted to, just curious as to how
It's
that went.
less than 10, I'll put it that way.
All right, thanks.
Most people, when they hear the price, they're not interested.
That's fair.
Okay, so here's what we're looking at now for current fees, prediction, and where I think we need to go at some point. And we'll have to have discussions, after we get the budget passed on where we want to take it. Right now, we have an optics problem because if a hauler comes up to pay for delivering to the transfer station, they're paying less than what it cost us to dispose of it. So right now, we're earning $105 a ton, and we're paying $111.53 a ton.
What bothered me is we talked about this, it seems like a year ago, that we were done underwriting people's.
Right. But what we did, the last increase, what we did is we increased the $100 ton to $10, and that keeps us in the green, I'll say, for this budget, but it's an optic problem. So we need to hold the $10 a ton for the under 100 pounds for quite a few years, and then raise the rates for the, basically the haulers, the ones who bring in large quantities.
But why didn't we do this? Like, I know 6 months ago, we went through this big thing on this thing.
That's,
We need to revisit this, because I don't want to
Right.
bog down your presentation
Yes.
tonight. But this whole idea that we were going to subsidize people at the transfer station, to me, just didn't seem right, particularly when it came to commercial entities.
Right.
And maybe, that is really troublesome to me, that there is, it ought to be part of an ordinance that says, as our costs go up per ton, that goes up automatically. It
And that's-
doesn't need to come back to us for full-blown review. I just don't want to lose money hauling other people's trash.
we
out.
have that set up now for recycling and some of the others, but we haven't set it up for the trash portion of it.
Okay, I hope the council would join me and say, that's priority one as we kick off July 1st and start this new fiscal year.
Right.
That troubles me.
We went through,
It seems
went
like
through a lot,
it was
okay?
tedious at
It was-
times to
yeah,
get through
yeah.
it, and now we're behind again.
no, I don't.
Okay, anyway, point made.
Okay, so interesting side effect for what we're seeing. Part of it is because new construction, part of it because people are renovating. And if they're renovating and doing a clean out, it's all mixed, so we're charging them as construction demolition debris. Is the growth that we see in amount of tonnage for construction and demolition debris. I think we're gonna end this fiscal year someplace around 7,100 to 7,300 tons of construction and demolition debris through the transfer station. For household waste and recycling, again, this is total tonnage, that includes what Guilford and comes in from out of town. We're just about 13,500 tons and about 1,000 of recycling. If we compare just the portion dealing with what we pick up at the curbside, you can see when we started converting from being manual collection to automated collection and providing the recycling containers, we started a downward trend on trash and an upward trend to a degree on recycling. Looks like right now, end of the year, will be someplace around 1,000 tons again of recycling.
Can I?
Yep.
Can I go back to the, page 17? I just wanna make sure I'm looking at this right. You got 13,519 total household waste and recycling.
Right, but that also
That
includes
was
what?
fiscal year 24, that was last fiscal year,
Yes.
right? Okay, I just wanna make sure there wasn't a typo there.
Nope,
And then this year, what you're saying in this fiscal year to date, we got what, one more month to go?
right.
Okay? So, we extrapolate that.
Yeah, and we're gonna be someplace, because we're going down again on that to a degree. So we're gonna be someplace around 1,200,
So we're.
12,000 tons, excuse me.
Our household trash is going down.
Correct, because what we've done is if it's mixed household trash and mixed construction demolition debris, it's going into the system as C&D, construction demolition debris. So that's part of the reason why you see that number going up.
But isn't that the number, construction demolition, we charge for that extra, don't we?
Correct.
So that's why we should really, that's one of the reasons why we should gotta really revisit that formula.
And construction demolition debris, of course, is still higher than what we're paying.
Still needs a raise.
Keep bringing that up. Hurts even
So,
worse. It's not getting any better.
Right now, we're
Stop.
charging $170 a ton, and it's costing us $128.14 a ton right now.
This needs work.
Yeah.
I just will throw in, if you recall, just to throw it out there, we were cautious on overdoing the upper end, so it didn't look like, a major increase all at once, but we'll make we can make an agenda item for, right after we pass the budget and start having these conversations.
Aren't we also one of the few operations that brings in demolition? And not all the other towns do it, and a lot of them come here.
Right,
Correct, yeah.
yep. So that's the price for both in town and out of town.
But in our sensitivity, we started losing money,
Well, we don't wanna
which
do
to
that.
me makes no sense.
Yes.
I'd
It's
be
a
a
gap.
little
We'll fix the
firmer with
gap.
people.
We'll fix the gap. It'd be more firm.
We need to go up to where we think it's gonna be a couple of years from now.
Or you
We'll
just,
put
Take
those
money.
numbers together, that's easy.
Didn't we adjust the other fees to automatically increase as our costs
Yeah,
increase?
we'll do a very similar sort of process for you guys to have.
We don't have to deal with
yeah.
it every year.
Yes, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
We're all willing to offend sensitivities,
okay,
just so we don't lose money.
so remember, we're single stream recycling. The way to think of it is we have a set cost for processing and selling the single stream. So when recycling value goes up, the product, our costs go down. When that product value goes down, our costs go up. And that's what you're seeing here is the fluctuation and the difference. So at one point in 2023, we were paying $150 a ton. And right now, we're paying about $113. And it varies monthly, yes.
So where does our recycling go?
Okay, well, and double stream. Casellas goes into the Belmont Transfer Station. They load it and they send it to their MRF down in Massachusetts. Waste Management sends what single stream that we get up there, sends it to their MRF, which also happens to be in Massachusetts.
So it all kind of gets conglomerated into some kind of massive corporate entity, and we don't really know where
Correct.
it actually
We-
ends up.
We just know we have a formula and
Because it's far cheaper to make new plastic than it is to recycle plastic. So I guess I'm just concerned that although recycling's a great program, I think I'm not sure it's all or any of it is actually being recycled. I was just curious if we knew.
everything
it
that
ended
everything they take, they sort.
Sure.
And they do have storage capability and they wait till market. And sometimes they guess right, sometimes they guess wrong.
Gotcha. Thank you.
On a good note, the garbage is leaving New Hampshire.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's better than coming in.
That's right.
You have a program where you have that bin located where we collect corrugated cardboard.
Right.
Right? And that's a revenue stream for us.
No, it isn't.
It is,
It just costs us less. Not, recycling is not a revenue stream.
okay, it costs us less.
Right.
How do we increase that? I mean, I know you have that one collection thing, okay, and I'm not sure how often you get it full and empty. I'm not sure how often you get it full or empty, but how do we increase the public to use that?
Actually, I'd rather have them take it up to the transfer station. Mainly because that takes time for my crews to do it, and if I'm shorthanded,
Labor,
I don't have the people to put it on there to put it into the compactor.
right?
But if it goes to the transfer station, we pay a higher fee.
But you don't have the labor costs
I
associated.
understand that, I'm just
right.
trying to understand it.
Yes, and it depends upon what the rate is at one time, because every time it loads out, we get it based off what the commodity value of the product
cardboard.
happens to be. But it also costs us 365, or whatever the rate is as it adjusts every year to haul it to that site.
On an
So-
average, are you doing one bundle, one a week, let's say? Or
Oh, no, as we get into the summertime, we're probably gonna have to empty that and haul it up to the transfer station every 10 days.
Why do we use it then? Why do we have it?
That was my next question.
From my standpoint, I'd
No,
like,
well, I don't care, from the city standpoint, what service are we providing to people in the city that,
the only thing is they can get rid of it when the transfer station is closed. That's what it comes down to.
It's convenience.
Yep,
I'll also point out that, now that we have the actual recycling bins, like I'd never taken cardboard over there until I had one of those bins.
Yeah.
And now none of that stuff fits in there, so I have to break it all down and drive it over there.
Yep.
So there was probably a big increase in that when we went to the recycling bins, and you can't just put a stack of cardboard out there, they would take
yep.
I get my razor blade knife, I cut that.
And if you're on this side of town, you
a
can,
time for that.
it's a lot easier to go there than all the way over to
Yeah.
the transfer
And
station.
I'll say part of it, the issue is, we don't have anybody to watch it. If a business comes in and loads it up, by emptying their dump truck with it there, that's the money they're saving by not taking it up to the transfer station.
well, it would seem to me a couple of cameras out there would solve that pretty quickly.
We could put cameras out, but again, that's, what that really comes down to then is staff time to track down who it is, report it to the police department.
Well,
Well, you know
cameras,
what, I think a good deterrent would be the cameras and a
With
big
signs.
sign that says,
Yeah.
we're watching you,
Yeah.
and you're going to be held responsible. Now, that may scare off a few, I don't know, but it may act as a deterrent as well.
Yeah.
But, anyway, don't want to throw you off track here. We've got all sorts of DPW answers for you tonight, Wes.
Yep. That's why I always tend to go last. That way I'm not punishing anybody. Okay, so we're gonna talk capital improvement program right now. Okay, so this is what's in the upcoming budget. Pay attention, you know, what we're recommending or what the city manager is recommending is $1 million in the road program. Sidewalk tends to get either in the road program or we do it separately. Annual bridge maintenance is those things that we have to do, washing it to get the salt off, any minor repairs if we got to replace a gasket or something. And then Moore Road landfill is $70,000 for the next planning stage. Where's Boulevard Stormwater is really more at that level for design portions for any issues that come up. Because for the most part, the drainage system on Weirs Boulevard dates back to 1927, the last time when the state upgraded the road. Replace Langley Bridge and Hilliard Road bridges, that's the shares that we need for those projects. The first part, Langley Brook was, for that bridge was last year. So that would give us our share for that, and then the 126 is for the share for Hilliard Road. Okay.
Yeah, go right ahead. Hold on one second.
Sorry to keep interrupting you, but am I correct that our road budget has not increased much in the last?
I have a slide coming up on it.
Okay,
So if
I'll
you-
wait.
Hold that, yep. Okay. So, it so happens, when I was doing this presentation, Warren Hughes in the Laconia Daily Sun had two facts that really I wanted to put in here. So on May 3rd, and week of May 3rd, he briefed the council, said that he was $9 million behind on street repairs, and although the $500,000 the city spends every year helps, we're getting further and further behind every year. And then, still true, a road lasts about 15 years. Okay? Then, that same article in it, it said Scott Myers requested that city council fund $1.8 million for the next fiscal year, excuse me, and asked for a $1.8 million commitment for each of the next 3 years. Okay, so that's that piece. Here's what, by going through the past records, not counting bonds, that's the next slide coming up, what we have gotten in the annual road program. So you can see in 2000, we got 500,000, went up in 2015 to 1.8, and then we've been bouncing back and forth. But since 2023 down to what's proposed for 2026, we can see a steady decline on what's available for annual road program dollars. Okay? Now, there has been pieces that we've been getting, but they've been really large projects that we try to do in our major roads that really needed the work. So it doesn't really take care of all those small streets that are out there that are in bad shape. So in fiscal year 16, we got the bond for Lakeside Avenue. Then we got two total for $5 million for Union and Court Street and the various pieces that we did. We got some for Court Street Bridge, but I wasn't able to pull the numbers exactly out of that bond piece. Then we had road improvements for Franklin Mechanic and other areas. And then the current year is, we got over 2 million, but it's mainly the bridges, Appleton Street and Old North Main.
So I guess my concern here is that I feel like the road budget, we've kind of been kicking the can down the road.
Yep.
I guess that's easy to do with roads because next year they're just going to be slightly worse than they are this year, and the year after that they're slightly worse. Are we getting to a point where we can't do that anymore, that we really have to start addressing things, or is that 10 years out? Is that?
You'll see that in other slides, but I can probably explain it very simply. Hilliard Road was tolerable. This past winter, it killed it. And it was gonna make it even worse because in next year, and around the September timeframe, we're gonna do the bridge. It would not survive all the construction equipment going down the road to do that bridge at Pickerel Cove. So this year, we said, yep, it's time. We're reclaiming it, adding some pipes in to help improve the drainage, because that's part of the problem. And then to even help with the traffic, we took down some of the high points and raised some of the low points to try to get the drainage and make it safer.
As you know, in my ward, there's been several complaints about drainage and roads, and it is frustrating to have to tell people the big picture of priorities and where those streets might fit into that, and how much needs to be done before we get to those.
Yeah, the other thing to point out is how many roads have we added in the last 20, 30 years, but yet our budget's going down.
Right.
And you'll see that information as we go in the slides. Okay, so projects we know we have funding coming up on that we've got to do. Okay, so Academy Street Bridge got done. That's why it's crossed off. Centenary Avenue Bridge, 100% state funded, so we don't have to match anything, is 26, 27. Really depends upon all the issues that we have to work through, because that's such a constrained area. It may not be next fall, it may be the fall after that, or the springtime. Langley Cove will be the fall of September timeframe, maybe a little bit earlier of 2026. Elm Street Transportation, the TAP one, is 2028. Union Ave, which is ending the 10-year program, is 2034, and then you can see the other projects that we have. Okay. It's hard to read on this, but part of the question we had to come up with is what do we really need in the next 3 years? And we're really talking bonding on this, and that's 18 million, okay? And what you're talking about are roads like the rest of White Oaks, Pogus Park, Pickle Pond Road. Those are the things. We're still not getting into all the little necessary side streets that are out there. So it's gonna get us started, but at the same time we're fixing things, roads are aging out and it's increasing. So when we were talking about, you know, how much we need in 2023, when we did that briefing, that was like $40 million, but that was just not what was backlogged right now, but that was what was gonna be backlogged at the time frame when the project would end it if it wasn't funded. So that's where we're sitting.
So do you have a number of what you would like the road budget to be every year, that we're not just bonding emergencies, that you can,
Okay.
like, how far are we from the mark of where we need
There's
to be?
two pieces to it. To keep good roads good, which is really your annual road program, which should be milling and overlays, shim and overlays, that sort of thing, for just to keep the surfaces indecent. That's about 2.5 to 2.8 million a year. Then you've got all the ones you got to do to fix those that have beyond that point. And that's really what can afford when, what drainage are you going to have to do. Because you may not believe in climate change or not, but we're getting more severe rainstorms. A lot of our old drainage system dates back to, you know, clay back into the early 1900s that can't handle the flow, especially as we built more houses. So we get drainage flooding. Elm Street, we go from a 15-inch down to an 8-inch at some point. That's why you see the water coming out of the catch basin on Elm Street during certain storms.
I'm glad you're bringing these numbers up.
Yep.
That's all I have to say.
So that's where it sits. The other piece to it is we have rules that we have to meet for ADA. Technically, you're supposed to have a plan back in the 90s on how to meet ADA standards. We're getting there as we do traffic signal upgrades. We do it. The Union Avenue one will take care of basically Busy Corner and Guilford Ave. So what we've got left is Main and Oak, Beacon Street, East, and Church. Those are the two that really haven't come into planning to bring them up to ADA accessibility, as well as sidewalks and everything else. Okay, so we were talking backlog. So for reclaim and reconstruction, 12.3 million. For overlays and shims, about 11.2 right now. Total backlog is just over 23.5.
All right. I apologize, but I have to be somewhere else.
Are you offended, shocked, disgusted, frustrated?
Yeah, a little bit of that.
Okay. Not a reflection of you. It's not a reflection of you, Wes.
And just a reminder, as we accept more roads into the city, if we accept them through, accept as is program where we accept in the condition they are, instantly our backlog goes up.
I'd also like to point out that we're a city that holds a yearly motorcycle rally, and to not properly fund our road maintenance seems short-sighted to me.
I'm just trying to figure out all the money, plus we gotta build him a DPW building.
The issue is this, how this state operates. And there's no other, it's, that's it. We are a tourist economy here.
Right.
Yet we receive no benefit directly to the municipality because we're a tourist economy, right? The businesses do, and I applaud that, and I love showing off this city. But when Rooms and Meals goes back to the state, it does not come back to us proportionally based on the volume of that economy we're taking on our shoulders. When the House budget flatlines Rooms and Meals distributions this year, leaving it $11 million short to help balance the budget, it hurts municipalities like Laconia that live under a tax cap, that welcome people from all over the world to enjoy our lakes, our cities, and our people, and our city and our people here. Yet we're left holding the bag because we have a pension system that's been broken and not addressed. We have suspended, and now we're trying to repeal municipal aid. This has gone on for decades, and this is where, no pun intended, the rubber hits the road. It is a crumbling infrastructure, and the state has walked away from all obligations, and they've just continued to downshift it on local property taxpayers. Now, we work really well as a city under the tax cap. It forces us to plan, to be considerate of our taxpayers, but at what point does this whole system, a well-run city like Laconia is, buckle under the stress of this backwards formula that the state is using? That's what's killing me on this. Could we bond 23.5? We have the ability to bond, but that doesn't give us operating money at
Right.
$3 or $4 million per year going forward just to maintain these roads. And who pays the price? It can be our visitors, of course, but who pays the price but your trucks, the fire department's trucks, the police officer department's cars, the people who live here 12 months a year that have to deal with the bad roads. It's the people on Hilliard Road, and Councilor Cheney and I have been down there enough. We were so happy, I believe, to get that culvert fixed because it was so dicey for the people who were paying property taxes there to be able to get back and forth. Now we find out that the trucks using the roads have destroyed the road. I'm not blaming anyone for that. I'm just saying it's just such poor conditions to put this city under to try to keep up with that.
Not the Concord, we've forgotten about.
It's maddening, and this is the type of stuff. It's great we balance the budget every 2 years, but when we do it, continue to do it on the backs of property taxpayers, I find it galling that we sit here and have to deal with this problem. And I'm not yelling at you. I'm frustrated by the whole system and the whole process. And I so appreciate you bringing these raw numbers forward to give us a really eye-opening experience as to where we're at. Because we have limited options to get out of this. And not one of them is particularly pleasant.
Yes, sir.
Anyway,
Yep.
I'm off the soapbox right now, and thank you.
The one benefit of them coming through the betterment process is, when it says future backlog, that may be 20 years down the road. That's not, because they paid to bring it up to city standards when they come in through the betterment process. So all we're seeing at that point is just the increase in the annual cost to keep the road up at that point, whatever we have to do to it.
One more
And the
thing.
price of reclaiming a mile of road has gone from, $750 to $1 million to 1.5 now. You can't keep up with it.
Sure.
It's just, anyway, I'm sorry,
No,
Councilor
one
Susie,
thing,
I'm
Mr.
still
Mayor,
wound up.
just coming back to what we had our discussion last week, okay? It's time for us again, I know the city manager's working on it, impact fees, okay? No more waiving impact fees or 80% discounts here and there and anything else, okay? And it's gotta stop, okay?
Go ahead, I'm sorry to throw you off.
Okay, so options to reduce the backlog, basically what we've talked about already. Increase the annual road program, develop a bond program, may have to use the charter exemption, do not accept any more existing private roads, convert select roads to pavement to gravel, because it's cheaper to maintain. or any combination of the above. Okay, so 10-year plan. What we're really asking for is something that tells us what we can expect in the future so we can start making some long-range plans. One of that will be key is going to be the state school property, Laconia Village. We can't build ourselves out of that. That's going to be technology. That's going to be high-tech traffic signals feeding back into it so we can adjust timing as time of day and all of that. Yes.
I have a question about that. So I know as part of the development of that, they're gonna look at that, the intersection there, they're gonna look at the roads adjacent to the property. But I feel like it's probably on the city, right, to look at what is the impact gonna be to North Main Street? What is the impact gonna be to Elm Street, right?
Part of it is
Done any of that?
as part of the traffic study, is they're gonna be studying some of the intersections in the city proper, not just the state ones.
Oh, okay.
So that'll tell us which things that we're gonna have to do. Their first request was basically they wanted to do Guilford Ave and Main Union Court intersection. But the problem comes in is everyone well knows, if you just do those and don't fix the ones that feed it, we just changed the location of the problem. So we're gonna have to look at, you know, the signals, Oak, North Main, the one at Church Street and Main, and then the one at Busy Corner, because it backs up through Busy Corner, you know, at certain times of the day for people trying to get onto Guilford Ave and, you know, to get out of town.
I have some real concerns about Elm Street and the impact on that road and how much of a massive project it would be
Lakewood Square with the way
to fix that.
all that traffic gets like bottlenecked, not bottlenecked.
Yeah, and that,
Squeezed in.
and we don't really have much opportunity to widen Elm Street because the houses are so close. But at least for in 2028, we've got the TAP to help that piece, and we're gonna have to bond. Now, in talking with the planning director, Rob Mora, he says we can use, we can require them to do certain improvements off-site, but then that gets deducted basically from the impact fees, the way the law is written. So we're watching carefully, you know, what we're gonna have to do traffic signal-wise, time to what happens. And it could actually be worse at the beginning part where you have all the businesses there in phase one, but you don't necessarily have all the housing to support the businesses. In which case, we may see traffic impact increase during that time and then start seeing it go down as the apartments and the condos and the homes are built up there. But the benefit of a 10-year plan, it starts getting us and when we can start applying for federal grants and which streets we gotta do when.
I got a question for you there on federal grants, Russ.
Yep.
Is this, who within your operation, or if it's not your, who's looked for, finds, you know, I'm very proud of the police department, they get so many grants, it's just like, you know, it's a magic wand, okay?
The rules are kind of sort of different for public works facilities. For roads, we have to go through the 10-year plan at the state, NHDOT's 10-year plan, get it into there. Unless, of course, something comes up and we're able to sneak it through congressionally directed spending, okay? The other piece is FEMA for things that meet FEMA criteria. But I don't know what's happening right now with what their funding level is. And then on the other side of the house for drainage, water, and sewer, for the most part, they're loans with certain portion of principal forgiveness. But I was at a meeting with Department of Environmental Service, and they get a lot of their funding from EPA. The EPA informed them they got a 54% cut in their budget. So if they get a 54% in the cut in budget, we may still get the clean water revolving loan funds, but the principal forgiveness may disappear. So who knows what we're going to be able to get grant-wise. There is no grant for, other than I can compete for the Volkswagen, you know, diesel fund for replacing trucks or whatever. But then you got to have enough mileage to be able to compete against other cities who have more mileage on a truck. So, okay, so that's the history of our mileage that we've done, completed. So last year, let's see, we finished 10.7, but most of that was crack sealing. This year, between what we're doing, we're going to be about a little over 4.76 miles is what we're thinking we're going to do. Okay, so just a reminder what we did last year. Well, everyone knows that piece. This is what we think we'll be doing in the springtime. Timing really depends upon how things go. Appleton probably will start when everyone comes off the road because of Bike Week. That's a good project, it's out of the way, doesn't impact it. Then sometime after Appleton's done, a crew will go into Old North Main Street and finish that northern section where it really needs reconstruction. South Main, you already saw, if everyone's been up on Scenic Road, we did pump station to pump station. And then Hilliard Road, we're working right now. And this is what we think we'll be doing with the $1 million fall, spring of next year. Okay, internal service fund. This is always interesting. I have to depend upon the Energy Information Administration in November, December timeframe on what their predictions of fuel's gonna be. So back when I did that, that's what they were predicting, 3.52 for diesel for 2025 and 3.20 for gasoline per gallon. Age of the fleet's getting better because I've been replacing one big truck a year through various means. I'm getting to the point, you'll see it, where I'm getting too many that are aging out. I can't keep following that same tactic. But we're also getting with a warranty plan. So for the first 5 years, our costs are being held down. We're still focusing on training. We have a new mechanic in, diesel qualified, but we're getting him all the air brake training and everything else he needs to be certified. And then we're working with finance to update the internal fund procedures for ISF. Okay, so here's what the latest is as of the 6th May from their predictions. So I budgeted 3.52 and 320. Right now, for 2025, they're predicting 349 and 310, so we're close. Again, these are prices counting the taxes that are in there, because that's how they do it, and it really depends upon how the different prices are in the regions. New paradigm. I don't know if it's still gonna happen, but the next emission control regulations increase in 2027 for both cars and light trucks and heavy-duty trucks. So we could see another spike in cost associated with that emissions. When the last big change for diesel happened, it was about $15,000 per truck increase associated with those emissions. We had 3 F-Series trucks that were for contract. The backlog was so much they just canceled it. Went through the state contract. That was Ford. We had 2 vehicles that were ordered this year. They were not canceled, so they're catching up. On the CDL, I ordered one May of last year. It arrived May of this year. Okay. The current projection from the vendor is they're thinking from the time we order it to the time we get it in is 4 months. But the real issue is not so much the chassis anymore. It's the backlog on taking a chassis and converting it to a plow truck. We're gonna get it to them probably into this month. We probably won't see it with the body on it until November or December. And construction equipment like scoop loaders or whatever, they're in the 4+ range, what we're hearing right now. Okay,
Wes, is there anything out there, just an aside, of vehicles, of trucks that have been ordered, upfitted, and undeliverable? For whatever reason, the municipality cannot take delivery of it. So you've got something sitting out there that may not be exactly what you want, but might get it in a timely fashion.
the problem I have with that is I'm using 2 different fiscal years to fund a truck. I fund the chassis in 1 fiscal year. I fund the body upgrade in the next. So it kind of sort of kills that ability because I'm getting around 250 a year. Yeah. So I'm playing the how do I make it work game and still buy some other stuff that I need to replace.
Thank you.
Just to mention on that is how the ladder truck that was purchased was bought. It was almost that identical scenario. So we do find ways, if you find some that between us and you, we can maybe work through.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Realistically, I need, at some point soon, I'm gonna need about a $900,000 bond, depending upon what inflation does, to get some of my old pieces of equipment off the road. I had to pull my surveyor's truck off because the frame got so rusted that it wasn't enough left on it to weld. It was becoming unsafe. So we're giving him another truck that we happen to have, but we're taking it from someone else to make it work. So that's the honest truth. So I'm getting 300,000 this year. That's helping. We're buying the body for one. And it looks like might be able to fund something else and a new chassis. So we're working that closely.
So of the $300,000 that you're getting, so when I look at this list, which ones are you doing?
Okay, so as it sits right now, what I'm trying to do is the chassis that we currently have is being paid for next year for it. So that's 126.
That's, what's that, the large plow truck?
Nope, that's the one I already bought. So this is a new large plow truck that I've got to figure out how to fit in, because that's my oldest right now. It's 2003. It's good for probably another winter, but may not be after that. So my next oldest is like 2010, so it gives me a little bit of leeway. I can start focusing on some other pieces. When me and Danny were my fleet maintenance guy, Danny Walker, we're talking about, we had to sit down and say, okay, what do we need next? Do we need another truck chassis, or do I need to replace my scoop loader? Because they're both the same age, both the same condition, and we did it based on which one is worse. And in this particular case, we know we could get 1 or 2 years out of the scoop loader, but not necessarily that same amount of time out of the truck chassis. So that's how we're making our decisions right now.
Okay, thank you.
And then sidewalk plows, just to give you an idea, I've got 2 that date back to the 1980s. So as one system gets built off, it becomes, in my terminology, the can point. We start stripping parts off of it to keep the other ones going. Okay, sanitary sewer fund.
You're bringing the good news, right?
Yeah.
This is the one we have no control over. The state says you're gonna pay this no matter what.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, Wes, I don't want to correct you in front of everyone here, but my last name is pronounced Jarrett.
I know.
No, seriously, thanks everyone. And Mr. Mayor, thank you for your words and insight on kind of the state system there. It's context I don't normally come across, so appreciate that. So here we are in sewer fund. You know, I guess before I jump into sewer though, just a comment I have on roads. You know, it's a tricky thing to plan projects. You know, let's say with our $1 million instead of 2, right? Because you may plan a project and then a winter happens and then we find a Hilliard. And so now you're shifting $500,000 around, canceling something which affects, you know, what the water department may have been planning to do somewhere. So there's a lot of ripple and challenges associated to having the tight budget, right? So what we've been doing is when we do get into a road, in this year, if you looked at the sheet, you'll see for this fall, everything's pretty much reclaim, right? Except with the exception of one road. And that's because I feel bad, wasteful, having someone go into a project and put down a $300 a ton, you know, trench patch in, when the rest of the road is only gonna go for a few more years. It feels incredibly wasteful. And so, you know, water department and us work closely to try and avoid those. You know, hey, where do you really need to replace your water line? Okay, well, we got to do a road there too. Anyways, we've got all these roads to do. Helps us prioritize and be more efficient with funds. So we are very active with that. And so, with that being said, we get into the sewer here. So dating back to the middle of 22, there was a new O&M cost-based system that was flow-based. And they started us off with basically paying for about 50% of all of the operational costs out of the basin program, okay? Which is, as of now, a little over $3 million a year. This next adjustment, though, is very significant for us all, because from last year to this year, our cost allocation is effectively the same at 43.3%. However, as you can see from some of the demolition trash numbers, development is high, right? There's a lot more flow, there's a lot more connections coming out of the city. But there's a few reasons for why our flow allocations have gone down. One of them is through a lot of I&I, which is your inflow and infiltration work. That's happened over the last few years. Elm Street Sewer, Northern Lakeport Sewer, those were really bad. And then the lining program, okay, which has been very impressive the last few years. They used to just line big stretches of pipe because it was it felt good and it was a little bit easier to do. But when we realized, okay, we don't have $700,000 a year for lining, we only got 300. How do you prioritize? Well, we've got camera inspections for all of these systems, and you can go and you can find this one section of pipe on Shore Drive that has 2 level 4s and a 5, which means that there's basically garden hoses sticking into the pipe, just flowing groundwater. So, okay, it's a pain, but we're gonna go over there and we're gonna do this one section. And we did, 18 sections last spring that were scattered throughout the whole city, but you're handling all of the worst leaks in the pipe, okay? Then we get into the Guilford sewer system, which has 3 connections with the city, okay? One of them flows through the north, and that goes directly into a basin program system, and we're out of it. The other 2, though, are more interesting. The one in the center goes into the Blackbrook pump station, and when I started, I saw that Guilford's only cost going through there was they pay a small portion of the electric bill for that pump station, which is our largest pump station. They paid about $6,000 a year, something like that, 5 to 7, right? But after it leaves that station, it passes through 4 miles of gravity sewer. Okay, when we spend $800,000 of lining on that whole gravity main, Guilford's not paying anything, right? Whereas if they were flowing into a basin program pump station and that was a basin program main, they would pay their share. So I've been doing with Underwood Engineers, working out this basically analysis of how the cost sharing for that station and the gravity system from that station, how that should look and what would be fair, right? So we'll be presenting that to everyone this summer. And really they should be paying about 45% of not just the electrical, but of any kind of capital improvement, of any kind of operational expense, et cetera, associated to that station. Yes.
Do you mind? So is there a flow meter? Cause everything's on flow, do we track their flow so we know how much to charge them for the sewer, or do we have a flat rate for the flow?
Yep, good question. So back in 22, the basin program put some meters there, and they didn't capture them for a huge length of time. There is a meter there, and it's checked about quarterly, and so we put in our own meter and basically confirm data, and we're able to compare them season by season. So the data's good that's in there. What they're actually sending into us is appropriate, like as far as what Guilford is paying the basin program for sewer, okay? It's really just our costs associated to the station for us. That's all we're caring about for that Blackbrook station. However, when you go into the south, okay, and this is the reason why Guilford's sewer bill has gone up from 14.7% to 21 and change percent. Is down in the south by Route 3 where their Guilford DOT is, the basin program had installed a flow meter in the wrong location. And so they were operating under the assumption that there was only about 60,000 gallons of sewer coming from southern Guilford over the course of 6 months. Okay? When it's really more like 85,000 gallons a day. So that goes into our pump station by our DPW. That station right there is the one that receives the sewer from Guilford. So we were paying 99.9% of that station, and they were paying 1%, and now it's 85% Laconia, 15% Guilford. So we're not being charged. Say again? The one that's right next to the DPW building on Bisson Ave? Yep.
That's the pipe that comes down Guilford Avenue.
Yes. There's a 10-inch pipe that kind of goes through the woods there.
Right.
So there's a Y that comes from Hounsel and one from Guilford Ave, and then goes through the 10-inch in the woods. And instead of putting it downstream of the Y, they put it catching only Hounsel.
That's why 60,000 a year compared to 85,000 a day.
A day. That's right.
And it's only went up for 21%?
Yes.
It's a good start.
Higher.
Yes. So, like I said, with all of our development and everything, our rates are pretty much the same. So we had a new EPA permit back in July of last year. Lots of little changes, mostly verbiage. The significant thing for us that we need to work on is this, it's an adaptation plan, but it's climate related. So basically, in the first 24 months, we have to identify, stations in flood zones. We basically just need to have a list of different sewer system assets that are in flood zone or things of that nature. Have it, and then there's a next step of what to do beyond there. Long ago, I say long ago, it was 2 years ago, private sewer systems were within the EPA permit. They are no longer. So that's good and bad, right? We had a private sewer system over by the drive-in theater that no one really knew who owned it. I was like, well, it's either A, B, or C, so I got everyone's permission so that I could go in there and camera the system and really find out what was going on and help, kind of lead that process. But the new sewer ordinance, which we'll get into in a minute, is going to have something in there for private systems that'll kind of authorize us to, when there's some kind of life safety issue, health issue, that, we can go in there and have a look, right? So right now, as you guys remember, we've got a rate system that's being increased over many years, gradually. We, for the most part, a net zero budget. This year, we're actually going to be in the red, 150,000. That is, however, assuming that we're going to be paying the full bill to the basin program for the replacement fund, which is something that Wes and I have been working on a lot for the last 6 months. We, for 5 years, we received a bill for the replacement fund. It was $164,000 a year, okay? And last November, was it? December? Mm-hmm. November. Our bill was almost $750K due upon receipt. And we said, no.
Is that from the state?
That was from the basin program, yeah.
If I may ask, the basin program is
The Winnipesaukee
Winnipesaukee
River,
River,
the
basin
Planted
program.
Franklin,
Okay.
yeah.
I just wanted to understand what that was, okay.
Yeah, it's a long acronym and lots of words, and basin program is my short for it. So we've been working on a study with Underwood on replacement fund, what it should be actually used for, because state system, messed up banking, they use it as a checkbook. They use it as their checking account, ultimately is how it boils down to. instead of it being for emergency repairs like it should be. So while they should maybe have 3 to 4 million in the bank, they're trying to maintain 16 million now for emergency repairs. Yeah. So we're working through that, and assuming we have to pay the full bill, then we're going to be 150 in the red, 150 grand in the red. Okay, but that's that doesn't include any capital projects, right? Because we're doing the bond, which after the White Oak Sewer Extension project, you know, we'll have just over 200 grand left to finish out the 3 years. That'll be enough for a little bit of lining. I'll tell you happily that we've killed all of our 4s and 5s in all of our sewer inspection reports. So what's left out there may be undersized, it may have a lot of roots, it may have grease, but there's not a lot of groundwater coming in.
So, if I may ask, you have a $760,000 bill that you're debating, or you're, you know, saying it's not correct, right?
Correct.
And the state is saying, wait a minute, you're our cash cow. Okay?
To a degree.
Okay? And they have $16 million. When is there something here that's covered through statute?
It is by statute, actually. So,
They have that much money, or they are supposed to have the 3 to 4 million?
so by statute, we pay 5% over 10 years is how it calculates your per year output. But it's 5% of the replacement value of the whole plant asset. The weird thing.
Laconia City, the city of Laconia, or?
No, the plant. So the plant down in Franklin, all of their pump stations, all
Pay
their
5%,
infrastructure.
Was the city of Laconia pays 5%?
The communities
All part of the basin project pay 5%.
pay in. The 5% is 5% of a larger number. So in this case, they've reevaluated, and it's about 360 million. And so they're trying to collect 16 million over 10 years. And then they divide that by shares. Ours is 43%, or, you know, 42 and a half, and
Right.
stuff like that, okay? So, when they did this 5 years ago, though, their estimate was that the whole plant and all the assets were about 150 million. And then it's more than doubled.
10 years ago was just touching 100 million.
Yeah. So the first thing we did was double check all of their estimates and things like that. And it's been challenging, you know, getting information, and I think we're making good progress, though.
So on this 5%, I think what Senator Susie, Councilor Susie was getting at right there was
Yeah.
5% to the municipalities, 5% to the state, 90% to the feds. Is that the stack, or is that not the case?
No. So this is just a way of establishing how much the value of the replacement fund should be.
Got it. Okay. All right.
That's where
Okay.
the 5% comes in.
Got it. Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out what governs the 16 million compared to the original 3 to 4 million. You said they want to have 16 million in their checking account.
Yep.
Really, they should have 3 to 4 million.
Yes.
Is there a statute saying that 16 million?
Yes.
There is.
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't say how you come up with the total value. I mean, we've met with Ted Dyers and Rennie, and I think that there's some willingness to come up with something more reasonable. The thing is, their total estimated value of the asset at 360 million is relatively correct. But, so why does it need to be 5%? Could it be 0.5%? Could it be 1%? You know, so that's kind of where we're at now, is trying to figure all that out. But at the same time, they really are hamstrung financially on how to pay out. Because if, let's say the sewer department, you know, is doing some kind of large expense, right? We pay for it, and there's a due to, due from through the general fund. They don't have something like the general fund. So that's why they have this replacement fund, that they use it like that.
So they call it a replacement fund, but is it really an operations fund or not? Is that how they're treating it when you say it's a checkbook? Is that the issue on that?
Almost like it's an expense account.
The way to think of it is if they have a bond or they get a clean water revolving loan fund, it's a reimbursement to them for all their expenses. So they need a checkbook to make the initial payment until they get reimbursed, by the state bond or by the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund. So it's not really,
Got it? Okay.
it's more of how they handle payments now until they get reimbursed.
And they're able to say that they have more in capital so that they are a better customer, right?
One more question. Who oversees their expenses? In other words, oh, my truck is 5 years old, it's only got 100,000 miles, I need a new one.
Well, they have their budget, they go through the state process like the other
Yeah,
departments.
if it strikes me, it's the commissioner of DES, with the
Okay.
budget's approved primarily by Senate Finance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're making progress. Some communities haven't paid any of their bill. I would say most of them have paid nothing.
And have we paid anything?
Yes, we did.
How much?
We paid last year's bill,
Which was seven,
which was 165.
okay, and so now we're up to 750, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I'm so
I don't have the
glad-
exact numbers, but
I'm
yes.
so glad you haven't paid it, because
Yeah.
I would not pay it, and I would hold out as long as I could if it were up to me, and say, the number needs to be far more reasonable than this, and we're not paying.
Yeah.
We'll give you 150, call
We're
it
just
even.
not paying, you know?
Yeah, the cost for the study sounded very reasonable, so.
Again, we go back to downshifting to such an extent here on people, that it brutalizes people, and that ultimately comes out of people's pocketbooks.
Yeah.
Look, those are good people at DES, don't get me wrong, but with a bill like that, I'm not paying. Need to talk about this, so thank you.
Sure. We were all pretty shocked to see it.
I can imagine.
Yeah, we actually were chuckling a little bit. There was one community that was like, ours went up to $40,000 a year. I was like, that would be great if ours only went up 40 grand, you know?
But we also have to appreciate the fact, prior to the Winnipesaukee River Basin program, stuff was flowing directly into our streams, our brooks, and our lakes.
Absolutely.
Right, I mean, in any loss of this runs the risk of contaminating streams, brooks, lakes, which depreciates property value. I mean, and it's just the wrong thing to do to our environment. I mean, it's really a difficult situation that it needs to be preserved, it needs to be improved. It's just how much pressure can people take to do this, that's all.
I know folks have been working on it for over a decade. I know that recently, Ted Dyers is the assistant director there, and he's been there for about 18 months, and he's starting to get as concerned as some of us are with what's underground and ignored. The force main that goes underneath the Winnipesaukee River by Naughty Marina is a good example. It's 3 million gallons a day going through one pipe that they're too nervous to inspect because it's crusty and they can't actuate the valves and things like that. So we're helping them, trying to nudge them in the right direction of what maybe they should prioritize. But kind of to your point of what we're used to flow into the lake, when we were digging up Appleton Street last fall, we found a giant septic tank buried at the bottom of the hill because everyone had old, there's all clay sewer pipe in the road and everything like that, and they used to go through a settling tank to at least collect the solids before the black water went into the lake there. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of old infrastructure, and it's good fun. Speaking of infrastructure, we've got some projects ongoing. We finished the pump station on Hillcrest, fully commissioned and upgraded, so that's been great. Briarcrest Force Main, we're looking at an alternative for that one. We were originally going to open cut up the road, but there's an interesting network of underground utilities like fiber, cable, gas, etc. So we're looking at pipe bursting. We've got a couple more test pits to do to inspect the existing line to make sure we can do that. But if we could do that, we would save about $225,000. So it would be a $225,000 force main replacement instead of $450,000. And then we've got this public-private partnership on White Oaks Road. I'm sure you guys have heard about. It's been going very well. We'll have that phase one. I've got 3 phases to the project. Phase one is Lady of the Lakes to Sarasota. Basically, they're going to finish that phase and binder pave it for Bike Week, and then they're gonna leave for the summer. They're gonna head over to Appleton and Old North Main and Morningside and things like that. And then come Labor Day, they're gonna head back to hit phase 2, which is from our new pump station at Sarasota going north up the hill. The last address would be 796 on the left-hand side, just before Prescott Farms. There'll be some blasting through that corridor to extend the sewer up there. And then phase 3 was kind of a late adder, which was some residents who were kind of in that belly to the south of Lady of the Lakes, who were basically trapped in between city sewer, but in this belly, and they were like, hey, what about us? And so we started working on a low-pressure force main design for them. We finished the design, we're speccing pumps. In any event, when the rest of White Oaks gets reclaimed and paved, we'll at least place the force main in the ground and stub it out, and it's about $100,000 to the sewer department to get those 10 properties on. So when I went about this and trying to figure out what the sewer department could kind of justifiably spend and to contribute and participate, you start figuring, total assets, numbers of users in the city. You can do 8,000 to 12,000 per unit with a perfectly straight face, as far as what's in there. So that's where we're at. And last is the ordinance update. So this has been in the works for many years. We are very close to the finish line here. We had a few changes, lots of changes that have to do with language and verbiage and things matching up correctly. But primarily, we're going to be reevaluating our sewer development fee. That's going to be the most significant change that we're going to hear about in this room, because as it stands right now, it's $1,600 a connection. So a good example would be Province Street Apartments, 30 units, 8-inch sewer line, $1,600. Mom and pop, 2-bedroom home, $1,600. So having that be more fair and reasonable for all parties is the intention. Also, there's changes in specs, mechanical specifications, what kind of connections we like, how things should be buried, things like that. Those are some basic updates. Private sewer system access, as I mentioned, and other clarifying changes. Questions on sewer?
Go right ahead.
What kind of impact or pressure, or whatever you want to call it, is the state school development properties actually going to put on the sewer system?
Nothing.
No.
They're
not even part of the basin?
No, they will be. It's going to be awesome, though. They're just basically piping directly into the basin program's 48-inch main. So they're going to...
So they'll pay them?
Nope. We're going to inherit their ownership.
Right, in other words, we're not paying for it, I understand that. What kind of, does it put more, weaken the capacity or drive, you're talking about that one main that's going under the river? What is it, you're saying nobody
gonna
wants
go
to...
through that.
Right?
It will go through that eventually.
That's what
Yeah.
what kind of pressure, that's what I meant, okay?
Got it.
We're not paying the
Stress
bill.
on the system itself. It would be really, that gravity main goes far, and it goes through one of their decent pump stations. That pump station at Water Street I've been in the pump station, and it's actually in really, really good shape. It's just their force main that leaves it. That's
So the state school is gonna go where?
basically it's going to flow downhill towards Lake Opeechee.
Like it always does.
Yeah. Then amazingly, they've got this really interesting network that they've done. They're going to have no pump stations.
All gravity?
All gravity.
And it's gonna go towards Apeche and get...
Yep. Picked up by the main artery interceptor. Yep. So it won't touch any of our system.
Right, but you're still gonna collect the bill?
Yep. And pay their bill
Right, but
for their
there's
usage.
a margin involved.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Was that?
We'll try and be net zero on that one too.
No, there's gonna be a margin. You understand what I mean by margin? You're gonna make a profit. Pay the city's bills.
I think they're gonna give us the city main, the main
yeah, I
arm
think
of the
it's
city
great.
road, and hopefully we'll have access somewhere along Eastman, you know, so it'll be ours, so if we wanna tap into it at some point, you know, that would be,
Great thing.
pretty handy.
Any other questions for Nate or Wes? Nate, thank you very much. I was hoping you were gonna bring more good news than you get delivered, but, you know, we'll take the raw truth. Thank you very much for your work on this, and your presentations this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. 7:45 PM, I'd like to, there's no other business before the city council. I'd like to adjourn the city council meeting on the two budget presentations we've heard tonight.